Hi everyone, thanks for tuning in again. So the last video I made, we went over about 3 different problems that you can find on the Accuplacer exam. And so we're just going to continue on with that review. Before we start our 4 problems today, I want us to just review a little bit of what we went over last time so that we can continue to build on our knowledge. So this first question we went over, we understood that in order to answer these types of problems, we need to understand math language. So if we're reading a word problem, it says sum, that means we're adding. If it says product, that means we're multiplying. And if it says the difference, that means we're subtracting. We just have to make sure that we put things in the proper order, and then we'll be able to solve and find the answer. If you have any questions about what I mean, the full breakdown and full explanation is found in my previous video. So problem number 2, when you look at this equation, the main thing that usually intimidates students is they see fractions. And so in my previous video, we talked about the very first thing you should do when you see fractions in an equation is to try to get rid of those fractions. The way we can get rid of fractions is simply by finding the least common denominator. So we're going to look at the denominators 2, 2, and 4. And we're going to find the least common denominator, which happened to be 4. And we're going to multiply each side of the equation by 4. When you multiply each side of the equation by 4, you end up getting an equation that is completely free of fractions. When the fractions are gone, then you're able to get the answer much simpler. If you have any questions on how to find the least common denominator, again, I'm going to refer you to our previous video where I do a full breakdown on that problem. And then the third question we went over last time together was where we had to set up a proportion. And the indicator for us to set up a proportion is anytime you see that they're comparing units of measurement. If they're comparing pounds to ounces, if they're comparing feet to inches, whenever you see a comparison in measurement, you know you're going to set up a proportion. A proportion just means 2 fractions that are set equal to one another. So you have a fraction and set them equal to one another. And then just remember, whatever you put on the top, you need to put on the bottom. So if we are put units of kilograms on tops and the grams on the bottom in the first fraction, then you have to do the same thing with the second fraction. Anytime you're solving on a proportion, you go ahead and do the butterfly method where you multiply across. You multiply those units, you set it equal to multiplying against those units, and you're able to solve. Again, this is just a brief review of what we learned in our previous video so that we can continue building on our knowledge. I know some of you are taking your tests in just a few days, and so I want you guys to be familiar with these problems and continue to review with me. So now we're going to go over about 4 problems. I hope I have enough time in this video. And again, I'm going to break this down enough so that you could do these types of problems when you have it all again in your test. So in this situation, we're looking at a graph. Some students find it easy to look at graphs. Other students they struggle just a little bit. So I'm going to go at a pace as if you are a struggling student versus if you're just really good at it. If you're really good at these types of problems, just skip over to problems number 5 through 7. You're really going to enjoy those as well. All right, so problem number 4 asks us, Robert sells 4 different flavors of jam, and we see that blueberry, grape, peach, strawberry. The graph above shows the number of, The graph above shows the number of jars of each type of jam that he sold at the market during the first 2 years. Which flavor of jam had the greatest increase in number of jars sold from year 1 to year 2? So this light gray is year 1, this dark gray is year 2. They're asking us which flavor, blueberry, grape, peach, or strawberry, had the greatest increase. So increase from this first bar to the second bar. So if we look at this blueberry, it's increasing. So we know that's an increase. Grape is increasing. That's an increase. Peach is increasing. That's an increase. But the strawberry is going from high to low. This is a decrease. And so we know that we do not have to take this information into account because it will not be the answer because it is not increasing, it's actually decreasing. So we already know that the answer is not going to be strawberry. But what can the answer be? It can either be blueberry, grape, or peach. So now we have to see between the three flavors which one had the greatest increase. So it's very simple. All you have to do is figure out how much is in this one, how much is in this one, and then subtract to see how much it increased. So for example, this is at 10, and then this is at 18. So 10 versus 18, that means it increased by 8 for blueberry. Now we're going to do the same thing for the grape. So grape starts at 25, it ends at 30, so it increased by 5. So grape increased by 5. And then for peach, peach starts at, if you go across, it starts at 8. And then if we go across for peach, it looks like it stops at 12. So that was an increase by 4. So increase by 8, increase by 5, or increase by 4. Which one is the greatest? The greatest increase would be an increase by 8, which is blueberry. So the blueberry is the jam that increases the greatest. Let's go ahead and go to the next problem. All right, so in the xy plane, a line crosses the y-axis at the point of 0, 3 and passes through the point 4, 5. Which of the following is an equation of the line? So if we look at the answer choices, we see that all the answers are written in y equals mx plus b form. This is known as slope-intercept form. The reason why it's called slope-intercept form is because this m represents the slope and b represents the y-intercept. So if we can use these 2 points to figure out what the slope is and to figure out what the y-intercept is, we can go ahead and create an equation and be able to choose from A through D. So again, I'm just going to assume that this problem is a little bit difficult for you, and that's how I'm going to explain it to you, as if this is a difficult problem. So just tune into this, and I'm going to explain it so that you can feel like you understand, and I don't want you to be intimidated by these types of problems. So y-intercept just means any point that crosses the y-axis. So it's usually going to have a 0 in the front and a random number next to it. Let's just put the y here. A random number next to it. So if we look at the 2 points, there is a 0 next to a number, 0, 3. That 3 is the y-intercept. So y is going to be equal to mx plus 3. So we already know that our equation should be y equals blank x plus 3. So if we look at the answer choices, this one has a plus 3 at the end. This one has a plus 3 at the end. This one does not, that's a negative 4. And this one does not, that's a negative 4. So automatically we know that we're choosing between A and B. So now we have a 50% chance of getting the answer correct. Just as a reminder, y-intercept is always written as 0, a random number. It already gave us the y-intercept, 0, 3. That 3 is where the y-intercept, or where that line crosses over the y-axis. So the 3 is what we put in for the y-intercept. So now we have to figure out what the slope is. The way we can find out what the slope is by using the slope formula. They are not going to give you the slope formula on any form that they give you. Sometimes they give you a sheet that has all the references on it. They call it the reference sheet. But sometimes they don't give you the slope formula, so you just have to memorize this. So on your piece of paper, write slope is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. That is what will be equal to the slope. So you just have to take the 2 points that they were given. So the first point you were given is 0, 3. And the second point you were given is 4, 5. Okay? Very, very simple. The first point is 0, 3. The second point is 4, 5. Every point is written just x, y, x, y. Because this is the first point that you were given, this is going to be x1, y1. Because this is the second point that you're given, this is going to be x2, y2. So each one of these values coordinate So if you're going to fill in y2 minus y1, well, y2 is 5. So 5 minus y1, which is 3, 5 minus 3. And now we're going to do the same thing for the x's. x2. So x2 is over here. So x2 is going to be 4. And then minus x1. Minus x1 is here, so x1 is 0. Now that we have all our numbers filled in, we can go ahead and solve. 5 minus 3 is 2, and 4 minus 0 is 4. So we have 2 over 4, which is just equal to 1/2, simplified. How do we simplify that fraction? If you're not familiar, I'm just going to quickly show you how I simplified that. 2 over 4, you just find the largest number that can go into 2 and 4, which is the number 2. The largest number that can go into 2 and 4 is 2. So divide the numerator, the top number, and the denominator by 2. And you end up with 2 divided by 2 is 1. 4 divided by 2 is 2. So 2 over 4 simplified is 1/2. And remember that 1/2 is going to be equal to the slope. So instead of writing mx plus b, we're going to write y is equal to 1/2 x plus b, which was 3. So now we have the equation of our line. Y is equal to 1/2 plus 3, so our answer is going to be A. I know I just went over a lot of information, and so you may have some questions. Please leave those questions below, but don't get intimidated, don't give up. As a mini review, for the people who are still with me, and I'm so glad you're sticking through this video because I know this is going to help you pass your exam. Just as a brief review, you're going to write the equation in y equals mx plus b form. B represents the y-intercept. Slope represents the m. So in order to figure out what the y-intercept is, just find the point that's written with a 0 and a random number. In this case, it was 0,3. 0, 3. That 3 is what b is going to be. So immediately, we were able to identify b as 3, and we were able to eliminate these two equations because they had different numbers at the very end of their equation. So automatically, without even doing any hard work, you were able to eliminate 2 of the answer choices. So now it's literally just a 50-50 chance of you getting the right answer. Then you have to go ahead and use the slope formula, which I recommend you writing this down and trying to remember it. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And once you memorize that, just go ahead and use that equation, plug in for the 2 different points you have, and always simplify. We simplified by just dividing each the top and the bottom by that number 2, and we were able to find the slope as 1/2, and then we were able to fill it in with the rest of our equation. All right, I hope you guys are sticking with me. We have another problem for us to go over. So problem number 6, it says, the amount of money in M dollars Paul earns can be represented by the equation M is equal to 12.5 H plus 11, where H is the number of hours Paul works. Which of the following is the best interpretation of the number 11 in the equation? So I'm just going to pull that equation out so I can just look at it by itself. 12.5 H plus 11. So they say H is the number of hours he works. Okay? And they're asking us, well, what does the number 11, what could that possibly represent? So H is the number of hours he works. So if he were to work 5 hours, we would put 5 in this equation. We would do 12.5 times 5 plus 11. So if we're just going to use our thinking skills to think this problem through. If you are getting paid, and put yourself in the situation so you can understand it more. If you were getting paid an hourly rate and you wanted to know, okay, how much money am I going to make at the end of the day? You're going to take the number of hours you work, in this case 5, and what are you going to multiply that 5 by? You're going to multiply the hours you work times however much money you make per hour. So if you made $10 an hour, you do 5 times 10, and you knew that you were taking home $50. So in this case, if you're multiplying the hours times a number, that number is probably what? That number is probably your hourly rate. So in this case, the $12.50 probably is this employee's hourly rate. They're multiplying it times the number of hours they work. So now they're asking us, well, what could this 11 possibly mean? So now let's go through the answer choices to see what answer kind of makes sense. So the first one says, does the 11 represent the amount of money in dollars Paul earns each hour? No, because you multiply the amount of money per hour times the hours. So $12.50 would be the amount he makes per hour, not the 11. Okay? So then the second choice is the total amount of money in dollars Paul earns after working for 8 hours? No. If he makes $12.50 an hour, he's not only going to bring home $11. If he only works 1 hour, he's going to bring home $12.50. That's still more than $11. So the answer to B is not correct. Okay? Then it says the total amount of money in dollars Paul earns after working for 1 hour. Again, no. If he works 1 hour, 12.5 times 1, he's going to make at least $12.50. He's not going to make $11. So again, C is wrong. So D has to be our option, but let's just check it out. It says the amount of money in dollars Paul earns in addition to an hourly rate. So that seems plausible because this is how many hours he works. This is his hourly rate. So they're multiplying the hours times his hourly rate, but then they're adding this random number 11. So it must be something in addition to his hourly rate. So it must be something extra that he gets paid. Maybe it's $11 that he gets paid for overtime. Maybe it's $11 that he gets paid for any tips that he's earned. Maybe it's $11 for something in addition to whatever he earns per hour. And so our answer is going to be D. So think about how we got that answer together. Just don't run from this problem. Don't just click out of the video and never think about it again. Don't mentally just say, that's too hard. I can never do these types of problems. Just think, what did we just do together? We logically put ourselves in this situation and we figured out in the real world, how do we calculate our real money that we're going to make at the end of the day of a hard day's work? And then we applied our outside knowledge to this situation and we were able to come up with the right answer. So go ahead and do that when you have a problem that you're working on your test. Put yourself in the situation, use your outside knowledge, and figure it out. All right, we're going to go ahead and do one last problem together, problem number 7. Just go ahead and power through this. The more problems we go over together, the better chances you have of passing your test. So don't just tune out. Let's just get through this last one. It's only going to take about 2 minutes. So it says, the table gives the population of the 5 largest countries in the European Union in the year 2014. Which of the following is the closest to the mean population of these countries? Mean just means average. How do you find the average? You add all the numbers, and then you divide it by how many numbers there are. Okay. So we're going to add all these values and we're going to divide it by the number of numbers there are. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 numbers. So we're going to take this, we're going to add them together, and we're going to divide it by 5 because that's how many numbers there are. And so in your calculator, this should be super simple. You're going to do 65.9 plus 80.8 plus 60.8 plus 46.5 plus 64.3, and you're going to divide it by 5. And you're going to end up with $63.7 million, and that's going to be the mean or the average. Quickly write this down before you're finished with this video. The mean means average, but you also need to know these other terms. Median, it's the middle number, but it's the middle number when you put all the numbers in order. You have to order the numbers. You put all the numbers in order, and then you figure out what number is in the middle. So, for example, if I have 1, 6, and 3, you have to put those numbers in order, 1, 3, and then 6, and then figure out which number is in the middle, 3's in the middle, and so that will be your median. So you have mean, median, you have mode. Mode just means the number that you see the most. So if I have 1, 3, 3, 6, 2, 2, and 2, the number 2 would be the mode because it's the number that we see the most. And then there's range. In order to find the range, you just take the highest value and subtract the lowest value. So in this set of numbers, the highest value is 6, the lowest value is 1, so the range would be 5. All right, so we're done with these problems. Come back in a couple days. Hopefully I'll be able to get this video out either tomorrow or within the next few days so that we can continue to practice. Don't give up. Try your hardest. Try to think logically when you're doing these problems, and I know you guys are going to do well, and I'm so proud of you. Thank you for watching all the way through, and I hope you have a great rest of your